A man's silhouette stands tall as he battles a monstrous opponent one last time, marking the end of his tiresome journey. Sato, the great sage, takes out the knight's chess piece and moves it to check and corner the demon lord. The final obstacle to his goal roars, ready to fight back. The piece cracks and breaks, and a female centaur bursts out. With her powerful legs, she leaps high to strike the demon with a lance. Wounded by the attack, it roars in anger. Meanwhile, Saint Ange calls out to the sage and puts his attention on the hero, Cain, who is struggling to move because of his injured leg. It's difficult to believe that a warrior as skilled as the hero was wounded so gravely. While placing down 2 more chess pieces, Sato instructs the saint to bless him with a healing miracle. Following immediately, she begins an incantation and places the spell on him. Just then, the rook and bishop pieces assume their humanoid forms. Bishop is told to pass the miracle to Cain, which instantly heals his injured leg. On the other hand, Rook jumps in to attack the demon lord after receiving the order to protect the hero. The evil being screams from the pain and anger, and the saint can only look on in awe at the great sage's ability to heal and attack at the same time. Looking at her, he sees a tear fall. Resentment builds up in him, knowing that the reason for her tears is her intimate relationship with the hero. He tries and fails to calm himself down, dumbfounded that they're worrying about such things, while in the middle of a fight for the fate of the world. He orders Cain to rejoin the battle, but Holy Knight Ryza and Great Mage Mulan jump into the fray instead, unleashing their powerful attacks on the enemy. The two bicker with smiles on their faces, as if sharing an inside joke. Seeing the exchange, Sato confirms his suspicion that the pair share a similarly intimate relationship. Furious, he takes out another chess piece, summoning the Almighty Queen. A sinister force of energy bursts from the pieces, and an overpowering woman emerges upon hearing her master's call. The others back away, at risk of being completely annihilated by her energy alone. However, Mulan stops in her tracks, stunned in admiration of their great sage, and stating that he could probably defeat the demon lord alone. A tear falls as he hears their words. To attain unrivaled strength, he trained hard under his master, who's said to have the power of a god. He expected to meet good people after achieving his goals, but he's left alone once more, as his companions frivolously live their lives. Completing his attack and declaring it a checkmate, the great sage bids farewell to the demon lord. With the final battle over, he looks back to his party and sees them lovingly hugging in pairs. Feeling an annoying sting in his heart, he turns away, reasoning that it's probably common among lovers. The others notice and ask if something is wrong, but he just waves it off, setting his eyes on what happens next. Just then, huge doors adorned with skeletons appear. With this, he steps forward, ready to return to his previous world. His master, Kate, told him that there are 3 doors that can surpass space and time. One of them is in the demon lord's possession and only appears right after its defeat. To open the doors, Sato needs tens of thousands of souls, and he must pass through them before the souls disappear. As he pulls on its handles, about to take his first steps back to Japan, his teammates call out to him. They bid him farewell, expressing how much of a shame it is that he has to go, and even adding that they'll protect the world from then on. The otherworlder replies with a ridiculous expression, insisting that his nose was just itchy. Simply put, the world he's in isn't the world he belongs to, so he's certain that they'll be happy without him. As he's walking through the door, Ange calls out and stops him in his tracks, wanting to say one last thing. After much hesitation, the saint confesses that she's always been in love with him. The revelation shocks him, and he wants to hear more, but he's already being swallowed up by the darkness. Adding on, she says that her feelings have never changed, and that she'll protect the world with Cain from then on. Mulan laughs lightly at his reaction, making it apparent that he really had no idea, despite the aggressive and evident advances. Embarrassed by having her feelings exposed, Anne shouts that the mage had feelings for him as well. The young lady doesn't deny, explaining that she gave up and chose someone who had eyes for her instead. In other words, he blew his chances. It was a real mess, but now they can only wish and pray for his happiness back in his previous world. Finally, the doors separating them close. They believe that it's over, but a fist suddenly punches a hole right through the door. Seeing a figure behind the opening, they freeze in terror, thinking that the demon lord has returned. Against their expectations, Sato pushes his face through the tight hole, insisting that he's changed his mind about returning home. Cain tries to stop him, reminding the young man that he has something to do right after going back to his world. Telling the hero to shut up, he struggles to squeeze himself through. He tries to pry the doors open, completely believing that he can be happy in the world he's in. He's only going back because of his master's orders. However, he's always wanted to be with a woman at least once. Hearing the preposterous words, the two men push him back in an attempt to save his reputation, arguing that the great sage shouldn't say such things. Unable to force his way through the two, he's pushed back into the darkness. From the other side, he sees Ange and Mulan, who've already given up on him. As the doors close, he finds it a waste, as he could have done so much more. With the opening sealed shut, Kane sighs at the bothersome sage and notices his clothes that were left on the ground. Back in the darkness, Sato's face and body twist and contract. Having no idea what's happening, his consciousness slips. The moment of confusion lapses, and he realizes that he's passing through time and space. Light shines from afar, and he sees the murky image of himself as a child, gnawing on his nails and forcing himself to study. Just then, Queen's voice echoes in his head, asking if he remembers. Recognizing her voice, he questions what he just said, but she simply lets out a sigh of satisfaction, saying that love's bond is still working. It's a very important detail, but for now, there's no need for him to remember completely. Left in the dark, he tries to ask for an explanation. Suddenly, a girl's face appears in the image with her eyes covered in haze. Somewhat recognizing the familiar face, he calls out to Queen. However, she ignores his pleas, saying his previous world and real journey are waiting. With this, he escapes the dark void and finds himself falling from Japan's sky. He screams on his way down and lands on a pile of garbage bags in an alley. While it miraculously saves his life, the chances of him landing there is simply unfortunate. That being said, at least he thankfully returned in one piece. He scampers out of the dirty bags, deciding to find the main street first and figure things out from there. Covered only by the trash around him, he thinks about going to a police station and asking for help. Just then, the chilly night finally hits him, and his body shivers from the cold. Realizing that he's completely naked, the great sage quickly covers himself up with the trash around him. A few women come out of their establishments and shout upon seeing his exposed body. They scream for the police, saying there's a pervert roaming around. A couple of men come out, annoyed as they were supposed to be off duty that night. They approach him carefully, complaining about the increasing number of offenders in spring. The young man tries to calm them down, and one of them asks if there's a reason for his appearance. Cutting his explanation off, the police scolded him, saying they have to arrest him even if he did, understanding that he's about to go to jail. Right as his new journey began, he decided to escape. Using his athleticism from the other world, he jumps up and runs across the wall, desperate to save himself. The two consider chasing after the culprit, but choose to stay behind and drink. They're off duty after all. Free from them after jumping over a few buildings, Sato calms down and thinks about going home. While he can explain the circumstances, he wonders if his family will even believe him. After walking for a bit, he stops in shock as he realizes that he has no idea where he lives. No matter how hard he thinks, he can't remember anything about his home or his family. His eyes lose focus, and his master's voice rings in his head. After defeating the demon lord, he'll have enough strength to return to Japan. When that time comes, he'll regain his true self on Earth and achieve genuine happiness. But what is genuine happiness to him? His mind draws a blank. Moreover, his stomach growls loudly in hunger. Lost in his thoughts, he fails to sense and react to the door opening behind him right away. A woman comes out, and he covers himself disgracefully. Begging her not to scream, the once great sage whimpers and insists that he's in no way a pervert of any sort. As he tries to leave peacefully, she holds out her trembling hand and cautiously cries out for Tetsuya. Surprised to hear his name, he answers the call. Suddenly, the image of the girl from earlier clears up and reveals a much younger version of the girl in front of him, asking to go home together. Finally remembering her name, he calls out to Kana, who's already running straight to him. With tears in her eyes, she hugs him tight, asking where he's been all these years. After calming down, she explains that she's been looking for him for so long and welcomes him back home. The unexpected reunion stuns Sato. The girl he saw in the distorted space between worlds was his childhood friend. She's grown up quite a bit, but he's sure of it nonetheless. The girl hugging him right now is Kana. To his surprise, her hands begin to pat his unclothed body. She slows down after a while of feeling and says that his skin is too young to belong to a 34-year-old man. Confused but still examining, she wonders what kind of effort and technology went into developing his body. She suddenly makes him cry out in pain by hitting him right in the chest. Seeing his particularly young face and expression, her doubts about his identity grow. He tries to assure her about who he is, but she gives him a bright smile. After all the years of looking, she was worried that her friend would end up being a pervert who roams around naked. Unwilling to accept such an impression, he shuts his mouth, stopping himself from claiming his untarnished name. Just then, a bucket of water douses him from above, and a woman screams at him, asking what he's doing. While leaping down from a window up high, she screams at him to get away from her mother, and lands a drop kick on his drenched face. The force sends him flying back, and the girl named Maya worriedly hugs her mother. Kana, equally worried, says she shouldn't jump from the second floor. Ignoring her words, the girl turns her attention to the young man, and warns him to stay away from them if he wants to live. It's been 19 years since he went to the other world, so it isn't weird if his friend had a daughter and found happiness by now. Moreover, the child is brave enough to stand up for her family, and they have built a nice and loving household. Compared to him, who's remained alone after 19 years, they're much better off. Ideally speaking, it's exactly the life he wanted to live. His yearning thoughts are interrupted, as Maya continuously leaks out her killing intent. Kana tells her to stop, and explains that he's her old friend, or a lookalike at the very least. Her daughter tries to attack again, but the older woman offers him a bath instead. The proposition shocks the two, but she just says that he'd die if they left him there, naked and soaked on such a chilly night. If he were to pass right there, then it'd be her daughter's fault. Unable to argue with the logic, Maya reluctantly accepts and declares that his death can wait until he's dry. Trembling, he whimpers in gratitude. He gets on his knees to thank them both, and finally shares that he was already naked when he regained consciousness in the dumpster. Kana welcomes him into their home and apologizes for the tight space. She ushers him to the bath on the second floor, adding that she'll bring him clothes to use later on. His heart races, nervous from the peculiar situation, and he convinces himself one last time that he isn't a pervert in any way. The second he steps into their home, an intangible barrier shatters, immediately taking Maya's attention. It felt like he crashed into thin ice, but he waves it off as a trick of the wind, unaware of the broken charm dangling on the doorway. Making his way up, he takes a steaming hot bath, relieving himself of the freezing temperature outside. Recalling the day, he's thankful to have escaped arrest, despite having had to run away naked to do so. Unfortunately, he doesn't remember anything about his past self, and he has no idea what happened to the world since he was gone. So he can't talk about being Sato Tatsuya yet. He wonders if asking for Kana's help would be a good move. There's nothing to lose by being disillusioned after all. Upon leaving the bath, he sees a set of clothes ready for him. They look like they belong to a protagonist from a film in the 1960s. For someone who just came back from another world, it's perfect. Returning to the dining room below, he thanks them for allowing him to bathe and lending him clothes. Kana asks if he's warmed up, and apologizes for the clothes' old man smell. Hearing this, Maya angrily shouts, asking if she lent him her father's clothes. Calming the girl down, he assures her that he'll have them washed after, and wonders if she has a special memory with the outfit. With everything all set, he's told to join them for dinner. Before he could refuse, a hearty bowl of oyakodon was placed before him. Unable to stand his hunger and the mouth-watering smell, he thanks them for the meal. The daughter believes that he's being treated too kindly, but her mother tells her that it's okay, as he doesn't look like a bad person anyway. She's sure that he's suffered through so much, but she promises him that it's okay now. Her sheer maternal presence makes his heart throb, and he almost addresses her as his own mother. Seeing how kind she is, he bets on the possibility that she might accept him, Tatsuya Sato, in spite of his perverted impression. He was about to confess, but his words were interrupted by a loud shout, calling Kana's name. A moment of silence passes, and the shout rings again. Their door creaks open, and a couple of drunk men enter, apologizing for coming home late. The one who's still conscious explains that the other drank way too much and threw up on his own clothes. He loudly asks her to pick out clothes to wear. Hearing the voice, Sato recognizes them as the police who almost caught him. Meanwhile, Kana realizes that she forgot to close the door and tells the two to begin eating while she tends to the customers. As the two call out once more, she rushes to the store. Noticing his confusion, Maya curtly shares that they own a clothing store. Not wanting to disappoint her mother with leftovers, she tells him to finish his food quickly and leave at once. He wants to eat as well, but there's something he needs to talk to her mother about. Finding his identity suspicious, she waves her finger, and something flashes across the room. He notices a charm floating around, and is surprised to see magic surrounding it. Just then, a chain shoots out of it. More appear from the electronics, photos, and even the food shelves, all of which entangle and bind him. Dumbfounded, he questions how magic even exists in Japan. Even stranger, beast-like ears pop out of Maya's head. She says that she knew, right from the moment he broke the barrier at the front door. Looking back, he remembers the thin ice he felt earlier. Moreover, normal people wouldn't know why they can't move, but he can probably see the chains clearly. Taking out a dagger from her shorts, she says she'll beat an explanation out of him. Looking at her, he sees a magical high school girl with a set of ears and a tail. The whole visual is too much of a cliché. Ignoring his remark, she vows to protect her mother. He insists that he was just passing by. With her blade inches away from his face, she humors him and asks where he came from. In order to feel magic, one needs to have the ability to handle it. In the same way, knowledge about the phenomenon of magic cannot exist unless people share a single dimension. Unaware of what he's thinking, she orders him to answer quick, else he gets strangled. All that said, as long as he's in the same dimension as her, he should be able to use his magic from the other world. Bewildered by his change in attitude, she tries to assert dominance. However, it doesn't work, as Sato has already summoned his magical storage and taken out a pawn piece. Seeing her panic, he informs Maya that he can break the chain with one move, but adds that he wants her to hear his story first. He tries to convince her that he isn't an enemy. Unfortunately, she responds with hostility and conjures a bunch of shikigami to hurt him. Still chained up, the great sage activates the pawn. A tiny lady appears with a sword and lets out a powerful slash. The attack destroys the chains, shikigami, and the girl's heirloom sword in one swing. Seeing herself completely overpowered, she whines and cries. He realizes that he might have overdone it, and that he hasn't even told her his name. With a prideful expression, he shares how he appeared in a different world as a sage, and returned to Japan after defeating the Demon Lord 19 years later. To sum it up, he introduces himself as the great sage, Sato Tatsuya, 34 years old. Getting hit with reality, his face gets red from embarrassment. Things get worse after seeing Maya's expression, which clearly screams how lame he sounded to her. He tries to defend himself, saying he just happened to run his mouth. She doesn't really understand, but she agrees to listen to his story anyway. Before that, there's something she wants to confirm. Hearing her mention the Kasidzu clan and the lower gods, his expression changes. Seeing this, she suddenly clings to his clothes, begging for his help with a terrified and desperate gaze. Kana, who's obliviously tending to the customers in the store, is in grave danger. While Kana tends to her customers, Sato and Maya talk about her inside the house. The sage is shocked to hear that his childhood friend is in danger and demands more details. However, Maya points out something and he interprets it as someone eavesdropping on them. But this isn't the case, as she is trying to say they need to clean up the room first, which is hit by the chains. The girl tells him they are in grave danger, but they must clean the room first. The man understands the urgency, calls forth the bishop, and orders it to bring the room back to normal. The bishop immediately heeds the request, and within seconds, the room becomes clean. Maya is impressed, bringing out her heirloom sword, which is now restored. She is elated, commending him for having such awesome power. Sato brings back the conversation to Kana, and the daughter points out that her mother's eyes are different. The sage doesn't pick up right away, so Maya explains further. There are two organizations targeting Kana for her eyes. First is Japan's largest devil group, the Kasidzu clan, who wants to take Kana's eyes for evil. And second is the largest Onmyoji school, which wants to end Kana to save everyone. Sato is shocked that those two groups exist, but it shouldn't be surprising as a fox girl stands in front of him. He assumes that Kana must also be a fox, but Maya clarifies that her mother is a demon. She came from a powerful demon family, and was born with all the powers of all generations of their clan. This means that Kana has all the humongous power in her eyes, which is called the eye that takes all. Sato is alarmed to hear this, as the phrase is often associated with the demon lord. In the other world, the demon lord takes all the souls to open the door that can move between worlds. Not only souls, but also others' abilities, and it's terrifying that Kana's power is on par with that. However, Kana doesn't know how to use her powers, or maybe she hasn't awakened them yet. It will be dangerous if it is awakened, and she cannot bear if something will happen to her mother, so she pleads with him to protect his friend. Just then, Kana enters the kitchen and sulks when she sees that they didn't touch their food. As the mother laments to Maya, Sato senses another presence with them. Clueless, the girl urges him to eat, but he whispers that they have intruders. They're people with magic, 2 from the back and 3 from the front. The girl urgently whispers that it must be the Kasidzu clan. Kana notices the whispers and assumes that her food must be bad. Suddenly, the light goes off, which makes everyone cautious. Unbeknownst to them, the door slowly opens. Meanwhile, Kana asks if the two are okay, which they quickly confirm. Maya is quietly alarmed, thinking that the sage's power awakens her mother's. She whispers to Sato that she has something important to ask later to not awaken her mother's power further. She reminds him not to tell her mother the secret about her powers to avoid confusion. Meanwhile, the two intruders are slowly entering the house. Sato is torn about what to do to keep everything quiet. He notices that the enemies use magic to cover their tracks, so he decides to do the same. As Kana looks for her phone, Sato swiftly attacks the first intruder, immediately knocking him out cold. A gun is pointed at his temple, and he wonders if it is filled with magic. Still under silencing magic, the intruder shoots him multiple times, but the sage remains unharmed. Just then, Kana finds her phone and flashes its light towards Sato, who is now calmly seated as if nothing happened. As she wonders how the lights went off, Sato and Maya plan for the next intruders coming from the front of the house. The sage distracts Kana using the bishop, and on cue, the enemies infiltrate the house by breaking the wall. Sato didn't expect them to barge in so carelessly, even spilling his first Japanese food, which makes him annoyed. He immediately tries to neutralize the attack, but to his surprise, he is overpowered by his opponent. Luckily, his queen shows up, crashing his enemies at once, including the other two, which intimidates Maya. The queen retreats after her kill, and the sage commands the bishop to clean up. The light goes back, and Kana is unaware that the two are exhausted from protecting her. She sees the spilled oyakodon and offers to clean it, but Sato immediately eats it. She observes him and tells her daughter that he is a good guy, even though he is a pervert. Needing his help, Maya asks her mother if Sato can stay with them, which shocks the man. The mother is confused, but Maya explains that she feels bad for the man as he has no memory of his past. She pleads his case, reiterating that he must stay with them. Suddenly, Kana realizes that her daughter must be in love. This conclusion leaves the two speechless. Kana comments that something must have happened between them while she served the customers. Sato is against the idea, but Maya is up for it. With this, Kana agrees to let Sato live with them as long as he will not do anything indecent. The sage is dumbfounded by having a home and a girlfriend at once. His friend then asks for his name, oblivious to the fact that he is her childhood friend. He tells her his name, which confuses her. This makes him nervous, as she might discover his true identity while he is dating her young daughter. However, she remains oblivious, laughing at the coincidence. Sato contemplates saying the truth, but ultimately decides against it, reiterating that he is just a regular Sato. It's been 19 years since Sato was transported to another world. Since coming back to Japan, he has been confused with the modern technology around him, like the slimmer TV and the robot vacuum. Still yawning, Maya greets him in her fluffy pajamas, which makes him smile like a maniac. Maya asks her mother if she has made a call yet, which Kana quickly confirms. Sato is confused, but his childhood friend comments that calling in sick for school is nothing for the sake of love. Maya clarifies that they would go to a hot spring, which surprises Sato since they were attacked yesterday. He worries about Kana's safety but realizes that Maya must have a plan. So in the meantime, he leaves a piece of paper in the house to look out for Kana. He continues to contemplate the hot spring trip, thinking that they could have just used a different excuse to talk about Kana, but he can't simply hide his excitement. The next day, he and Maya travel to the hot spring. As Sato navigates the way, the girl asks him if he remembers anything from his old town. However, he remembers nothing. Many things changed while he was gone, and a lot of establishments have closed down except one. They look at the Tamu Hotel, which still stands and has become the center of business in the city. Maya reminds him to avoid getting the attention of the Yakuza and the Kashidzu clan. She smiles at him and states that it is a tough time for him to come home. However, she immediately takes back what she said and tells him it's a good time since they can rely on him, so he must not abandon them. She then pleads with him to go to the Inari hot spring with her so she can introduce him to the head of the Fox family. Sato then realizes that this is not just a simple hot spring outing. Just then, a group of thug-looking men approaches Sato and tries to intimidate him. However, he has not yet recovered from the fact that she deceived him. Maya tells him off as she is discussing important matters with Sato. The man assumes that he is Maya's boyfriend, much to her annoyance. She explains to Sato that they are people from the shopping district, and Kana sees them as good people. She also shares that her mother is already a widow, which shocks the sage. This is why the men from the shopping district are protective of her. She mentions that from now on, they don't have to take care of her since Sato will do that. The men try to argue with this, but she reiterates that it's Kana's decision. Hearing this, the men immediately stop and obey, clearly trusting Kana's good judgment of character. They just worried about the household with only 2 girls in it to tend by themselves. The men start to leave, reminding Sato to take care of the girls. The sage looks at them with admiration, confirming that they are indeed good guys. Hearing this, Maya reiterates that she wants to borrow Sato's power to protect her mother and everyone dear to her. This makes the sage smile, thinking that he's back at a good time. The girl urges him to meet the head of the fox family and thanks him for helping her. Later, Sato is screaming from the bus because of his fear of heights. Maya expresses her gratitude to the bus driver as the man almost passed out on his seat. She looks at him with disbelief, but he reminds her that this is his first time riding a bus after so many years, hence the carsickness. They finally arrived at their destination, but the sage looks defeated. They look ahead at the 100 steps, which they need to climb to arrive at the main shrine. Maya notices that there are no visitors around when suddenly a mysterious figure appears before them. The figure introduces himself as Yuku, the guardian of Buddhism and the devil blessed with the power of Vajra. Sato figures that he must be part of the Kajitsu clan, although he cannot feel his power. Yuku states that anyone who harms others shall not leave the place alive. He then attacks, and the sage swiftly deflects him. He feels the sudden change in his opponent's power, who praises him for averting his attack. Maya warns him to be careful, as their opponent must be the strongest hitter of the Kashidzu clan, the bruiser Yuko. The bruiser thanks the girl for introducing him. Meanwhile, Sato remembers his power from the shrine maiden he battled with, deeming that their power is from the other world. The bruiser attacks again, and this time it lands on Sato's face, hurting him. The two then exchange blows, hitting each other. The sage admits that his opponent's blows are powerful, which can even knock out a giant ogre. With no choice, he prepares to fight more seriously, shocking Maya. Fortunately, another man comes in between them, stopping the fight. The sage is shocked to see the man almost naked, whom Maya calls Azan. Yuku acknowledges Azan's presence, calling him the guardian fox. The fox calmly asks Yuku to leave, which the bruiser accepts as he is just running some errands. He starts to leave, stating that he is just investigating a goblin and glad that he takes a look. He looks at Sato one more time, saying they should meet again. The sage contemplates that he is too conceited, as he defied the demon lord from the other world. However, there are stronger people in his present world, and he still has a long way to go. Nonetheless, the guardian commends his power, but Sato replies that he is just an arrogant person. The guardian then introduces himself, and he transforms into a cute little fox. He shows them around, heading to the head of the Yoko shrine. At the shrine, Sato can't help but be amazed by the beauty of it. As Azan offers to take them further, another fox comes running to them. Maya calls it Auntie, and Azan greets it as Lady Chiyo. Sato apologizes for the intrusion, but to his surprise, the fox transforms into a busty girl, calling him Master. The girl is about to put him in a compromising situation, yearning for this very moment. The girl hugs Sato tightly, much to everyone's surprise. Meanwhile, the sage tries his best to avoid the embarrassing situation, although he lands perfectly on the girl's bosom. Just then, Maya violently gets him out of the way, accusing him of doing inappropriate things with her aunt. She then slams him hard on the ground, causing him to be knocked out. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that he would get distracted by his chest. In his dreams, he gets transported to the library of the Infinite Corridor, where he trains every day in the other world. He then hears a voice saying that fools are shallow, but a sage knows the hearts of others and shares their pain. A sage learns from history and never repeats the same mistakes again. Hearing this, he remembers being repeatedly hugged by a girl but almost killed by Maya. The voice continues, reminding him to never repeat the same mistake and to go on a new path as a sage. Sato jolts awake, confused about where he is. Azan informs him that he is in the living room, and that's when he notices another man with them. Azan introduces the man as Unzan, another guardian fox who will be looking after him while he is recovering. Azan calls Chiyo, who is now dressed, with Maya seating in the background. The head of the Yoko family apologizes to Sato for her earlier appearance, and the man thanks her for the warm welcome. She then urges him to take a seat, letting the small foxes serve him tea. The sage expresses his gratitude to the servers while petting their heads. Looking at him, Chiyo can't help but be glad that her master has come home. Confused, Sato clarifies why she is calling him master. She explains that there was a lord who once ruled the land and who had the same spiritual energy as Sato's. After explaining, she bows her head to him, which shocks Maya. Chiyo expresses her gratitude to him for coming to their shrine and choosing to help Kana. Sato cuts through the chase and asks about his friend. The head fox explains that things started to change when his brother, Maya's father, was killed 10 years ago. However, she suspects that this turmoil started 400 years ago, when she met her master. She recalls that he saved her as a fox when he was still a warrior serving a corrupt lord he despised. He was suspected of treason, got attacked, and fled to the mountain. In gratitude, she showed him the hot spring where he healed and then killed the lord, ascending to the role himself. Afterward, they made an agreement that the Yoko family would be protected by helping with the harvest. However, people started to wonder about their bountiful harvest, and their hiding got leaked. Eventually, her master got assassinated by a mage who had special powers in their eyes. After that, more members of the Yoko family were assassinated too. So in order to protect their clan, they searched for people with gifted eyes. Eventually, they discovered Kana, and her brother was assigned to watch her, but he was also killed 16 years ago. Maya refuses to believe that her mother killed her father, stating that she's sad because she could only be with him for a short period of time. Besides, her power hasn't awakened yet. Sato points out how Kana found out about that. Chiyo explains that maybe Shimogami helped her see the future. However, the Kashidzu clan started to aim for Kana's eyes. Having no choice, the Yoko family asks for Shimogami's help to prevent Kana's power from awakening in exchange for a fortune and her left eye. Hearing this makes Maya protest and leaves Sato with more questions. He then asks what kind of person with gifted eyes can kill the master and the Yoko. However, Chiyo didn't see it with her own eyes as she was imprisoned because of the protection contract and just later found out that her clan members were killed by the same mage. Sato is suspicious about the circumstances and suspects that Shimogami might be behind everything. He speculates that they disguised their power and attacked like it was being done in the other world. He further asks if Shimogami eventually lowered the price for the protection contract, which Chiyo confirms. She was also asked to marry someone to settle things peacefully. This confirms Sato's suspicion that Shimogami is behind everything. Chiyo realizes that she was also targeted. The Shimogami pretended to be her ally while killing her clan, masking as the person with Demon King eyes. For years, they were able to keep the Yoko at bay and dependent on them using the protection contract. In this way, they are able to get both the God of Harvest and the Demon King eye all for themselves. Realizing this makes Sato seething with rage. He then asks about the Kashidzu clan and finds out that they are harassing the area to get behind the Yakuza. However, they haven't made any bold moves yet to avoid war with the Shimogamis, and they are also on the lookout for Ashiya Yuyaman. This gives Sato a better understanding of what is happening. However, he still can't figure out why the two forces are starting to move again. He wishes to see their moves on his board to calculate his next plan. Just then, Maya snaps him back to reality, asking about their next move. With a determined look on her face, Chiyo pleads with him to help them. He then remembers his former teammates and how he plans on living quietly and happily in Japan. However, it's far from what he should do right now. He remembers the voice he heard earlier, saying that people make the same mistakes sometimes. However, as a sage, going on a new path is his duty, and he plans on saving his childhood friend and her family. Realizing all of this, he asks Chiyo to make an appointment with the Shimogami school to talk directly with them so he can further get information. The head fox is alarmed as this sounds dangerous, while Maya supports him for his bold move. However, the sage clarifies that his goal is to not defeat the enemy, but to ensure Maya's family's safety without causing unnecessary conflict and ending things peacefully. Maya is about to argue, but Chiyo interjects, saying they are willing to forget their grudge for the sake of their future. Ferocious, Chiyo asks what to do with them if they don't comply, to which Sato dangerously answers that they will be annihilated. This makes everyone feel assured, but the sage rethinks if he is being too aggressive with his statement. Sato realizes his mistake for being so bold and worries if his plan will work out. He looks at the Yoko clan, and he cannot bear to betray their expectations. Pressured, he commands his pieces to strengthen their defenses. Rook and pawn start to move, enclosing everyone in a barrier. Unzan is surprised, commenting that the barrier protects him better than his own, which makes him sullen. Sato leaves everything to his pieces and expects them to contact him if anything happens, earning him an expression of gratitude from Azan. Just then, Maya remembers the katana she borrowed from her aunt and shows it to her. The head fox is shocked, seeing it completely different than before. The fox girl tells her that Sato broke it and fixed it. Chiyo holds the sword, recalling that her master gave it to her before he passed away. The master told her to use the katana to protect herself, and when it rebirths, the era of conflict will end and they will meet again. Hearing this, everyone looked at Sato, thinking he could be the previous master. The sage is overwhelmed and not sure what to do. Maya calms him down and assures him that he is free to do what he wants. The girl checks the time and declares that they should go home. The two start to leave, but Chiyo asks for the sage contact number. He tells her that she can reach him through his pieces, informing her that he can hear if she calls out for him. The fox girl then realizes that he doesn't have a phone and asks if he wants to buy one. He hesitates, thinking that he doesn't have any family records to prove who he is. For this reason, they must stick to communicating through magic. Just then, Chiyo shows him her spare phone and tells him he can use it. Sato is visibly pleased, and he immediately checks the phone. She offers to teach him how to use it, but Maya interjects, urging the sage to go home. On the bus, Sato can't help but stare at his phone, which concerns Maya because he might get carsick again. The sage assures her that he already disabled his carsickness using his ability, which she thinks is a waste of magic since he can do it using pills. He tells her not to worry about it, and instead teaches him how to use a phone. Moments later, he begins to practice texting, although he is still having a hard time getting used to it. Maya patiently teaches him, but it is just hard for an old man like him. The girl realizes that he is the same age as her mother, who can use the phone just fine. This embarrassed Sato, and he called Bishop for help. He then uses magic, upgrading the phone for his better use, much to Maya's astonishment. He shows her the button he added, stating that if he pushes it, the phone will transmit his will, making it easy for him to message someone. The girl looks at him in disbelief but is thankful that at least he is happy. He continues to boast that he can use his phone easily, but the girl doubts it. Sato wills his phone to send a message about the Shimogamis and emphasizes that it's good to have information about the people they're going to face. Just then, his queen communicates with him about the shrine maiden he battled with before, revealing that she is from Shimogami. The queen then adds that she locked up the shrine maiden in their storage. Sato reports this to Maya, who is shocked by what she heard. She asks if the maiden is still alive, but instead of answering, Sato prepares a barrier to let the maiden out, which freaks out Maya since they can be heard by Kana. The sage tells her to stay behind him as he goes first to check on the maiden. In his storage, a girl in her underwear comfortably sleeps in a bed. The maiden suddenly rolls over and nonchalantly eats a snack. She then realizes that she is almost naked and asks for something she can wear. She then reaches out for a maid outfit and immediately wears it, declaring herself a servant to Sato and calling him master. The sage is surprised, remembering the woman as a feisty opponent yesterday. Sensing his doubts, she offers to form a slave contract with him so he can summon her at any time. Maya is confused as Sato looks flush after checking his storage. He tells her that he will free the maiden so they can talk together. Suddenly, the maiden pops out of the storage and immediately hugs the sage, begging him to save her. Maya is surprised by this action, especially when she realizes that the maiden is the student council representative from her school, Haruka. She is stunned to learn that she is a member of Shimogami. Haruka clarifies that she is no longer part of the clan. Since she was captured last night, Shimogami will be extra careful about leaked information. She also reveals that she isn't a human but a Nekomata. She decides to stay with them because she might be killed by Shimogami. Sato promises her safety, but she has to tell him everything she knows about the Shimogami so he can protect his childhood friend and her safety. Haruka slyly replies that she doesn't know much. However, she does know that Kana's eyes are called the evil eyes that will bring disaster upon the world, and this prophecy will come true soon. Maya is shocked to learn this, and Sato believes that Haruka is not lying about the prophecy, and it must be the reason why the two factions start to move. The maiden enthusiastically tells them that's all she knows. Suddenly, a charm glows on her chest, giving her immense pain. Sato tells Maya to get back as he tries to break the curse that appears after Haruka divulges information. He assures her safety as he tries to dispel the curse placed on her heart. He further infiltrates the magic, making Haruka shout in pain. He discovered that there are multiple curses placed inside of her, and they won't be easy to remove. He continues to reach for her chest, where the curse is precisely positioned. The maiden pants, clearly out of breath, as Sato reaches for the last curse. Meanwhile, Maya broods over from the background, looking at the two, who are both panting and thirsty. The two gulp more water as the girl reprimands them for looking indecent. Sato clarifies that he just removed her curse, but Maya insists that he made it worse. She looks at Haruka and asks the sage what they should do to her now that she has nowhere to go. Hearing this, the maiden assures them she can do anything. The sage asks if she can lend them her power, but he reminds her that this will be dangerous. She replies that she is used to it, as many exploited her for power. However, she now has a powerful master that she can count on. Haruka is a Nekomata, and a magic user from the Shimogami school of the Omniauji group. In her target's home, she failed her mission and was captured. She thought it was over for her, but her captor turned out to be the great sage Sato, who's also a kind man. He's finally getting an idea of what the Shimogami are after, but he still doesn't know why Kashidzu are aiming for Kana's eyes, knowing that he got caught up in turmoil. Right after returning from a different world, she approaches her new master and asks why he came back in the first place. The question stuns him for a second. Thinking back, he returned in search of true happiness, but all his memories from the previous world were wiped out. Now he's facing two hostile factions for some reason. While he met a few women, He still can't seem to live a happy life. Tears fall from his eyes at the realization that he's having a midlife crisis. Pitying himself, he meekly wonders if he can get a kiss. The request surprises her, but Haruka turns back to her human form and clarifies if he wants one with her. Appealing to her sympathy, he turns around, claiming that he's having a panic attack. Their conversation is interrupted by thuds and loud yelling from below. Peeking their heads out, the two cautiously move to the sound from the storage room. There, they hear even more shouting and see a bunch of burly men threatening Kana, forcing her to sell the store to them. Studying them as they leave, he identifies them as Yakuza members and sees a sharp-looking man in the center of the group. He turns around, and Sato immediately sees another darkened figure in his mind, much like when he saw Kana for the first time in 19 years. That man, are they related in some way? With things settling down, she apologizes for the commotion, and he apologizes for not coming in time to help. She always puts on a brave face, but the shaking doesn't seem to stop this time. He urges her to call the police, but she declines, saying there's someone in the group she knows. His mouth opens in shock as he finds out that the man he saw earlier was his younger brother, Ryuki. Kana has told him to stop multiple times, but he isn't the type to listen to other people. That being said, she can't just give up on him. He's her childhood friend's little brother, after all. Unfortunately, Sato can't probe any further without revealing his identity. He was looking for a way to help, but an incident occurred the next day. People gathered around the store, looking at the facade that's been doused in black paint. No one was harmed, but there's no question as to who the culprit is. Worried that Maya might worry, Kana hurries to lift the stained shutter, wanting to avoid causing her daughter's anxiety. However, the young lady is up in their room, already well aware of what just happened. Going through the plan with Sato, she confirms that they'll calm her mother down by going down, having breakfast, and attending school like nothing happened. Placing her complete trust in him, she promises not to do anything. On the other hand, he's disgusted by his little brother's actions and decides to set him straight. Later that night, Haruka emerges from her master's storage and ridiculously finds herself flying above the town. He says she can do it with enough practice. His expression exudes anger, but he says he's much more composed now. Considering how he felt no magic from the men yesterday, tonight should be fairly easy. The sage summons his pawns and knights, and uses the Sicilian defense move to drive them out. Seeing his malicious expression, she asks again if he's composed, adding that the Yakuza is allied with those from Kashidzu clan. She isn't worried about losing to them, but if they keep flying around and emitting magic power, then the trap would be way too obvious. Waving her worries away, he calmly says he'll crush them either way. Soon after, Knight sees the group of men walking toward the store, holding a bucket of black paint. As they were about to throw it on the shutters again, Sato descended from the sky and ordered them to stop immediately. Startled by the unconventional arrival, they call out to Ryuki. Watching his little brother smoke and act like a boss annoys him even more. It must all be a game to him. Unable to recognize his older brother, he shares that the serious look on his face is offensive. To his knowledge, the young man is nothing but the guard of the clothing shop. Sato explains that their harassment has been bothersome and instructs them to stop at once. Unfortunately, he's been trying to get rid of the shop for quite a while and finds the owner's excessive kindness infuriating. Instead of rewarding her for being a nice person, the gang is ready to resort to violence, especially since they're being paid to do so. Well prepared to handle people with absurd powers, they'd even borrowed some men to help fight back. Two men appear from the dark, obviously from Kashidzu clan. They relent Yuku's power, and now he has to fight both of them at once. With this, they rush in to attack. The magic power inside them isn't great, but they seem capable of controlling it well. He can't let his guard down. One of them follows him to the sky, but he dodges the strike and throws him over to his companion. They move back to recover, but Sato takes them out in an instant. With his strength, he didn't even need to use magic and simply knocked them out with a back fist. Yuku watches and laughs at the sight from afar. As expected, the great sage is truly powerful. Satisfied, he decides that it's time to pull back. Ryuki stomps on his cigarette in annoyance. Looking in a far-off direction, he addresses Kashidzu, saying this isn't what they discussed. If they don't give him someone stronger, things might not end well. Just then, three beings silently appear around Sato, with two of them carrying the fallen men. He turns around to face them, shocked that they were able to creep up on him. Seeing this, Ryuki gets excited, believing that reinforcements have come to finish the job. However, the lady that appeared informs him that they'll be pulling out, and says he did a good job. Furious, he calls out to the group, demanding an explanation. On the other hand, Sato only watches them quietly. He didn't notice the woman at all, and the two behind him are obviously quite strong. So why aren't they fighting back? Ryuki continues to shout, insisting that they're supposed to protect them, as they've been doing so much work for the Shimogami. However, his cries fall on deaf ears. His older brother calls his attention from behind, slowly and calmly approaching. Their gang's true intentions are still unknown, but without the Shimogami, do they really think they can win against the great sage? Looking at his little brother's tearful and terrified expression, he warns them one last time to stay away from the shopping district. He turns around and goes on his way, leaving the group despairing on the cold street. A week passes, and neither of the factions has made any moves. Kana informs Sato that she'll be going out on an errand. Since the gang hasn't harassed them lately, she can leave the store and shop in peace. On the other hand, Maya groans by the counter, complaining that things have gotten too boring, and that they have too much time on their hands. Peace is good, but things have been too quiet, so even he can't help but feel anxious. Just then, a man calls him from behind. He turns around to welcome the customer, but is irked to see that it's Ryuki. Reminding him of the incident last week, he asks if he hasn't learned his lesson. Still unaware that he's his older brother, he expresses his irritation at being addressed so casually and says he has something to say. Suddenly, a hand smacks the back of his head hard, and a woman furiously points out his arrogant tone. She chastises him hard, stating that they have no time to waste, and that he should keep quiet if he can't let go of his pride. Understanding the situation, Sato can't help but get mad at the sight of his younger brother's beautiful boss. She approaches him with a delicate smile and confirms his identity as the Great Sage. He's then informed that Kashidzu has completely backed out of Kana's affairs. The revelation surprises them, and the lady adds that they've lost the group's support as well. Now they're in a dilemma, as they messed with the Shimogami already. That being said, she cautiously shares that they have a request, and asks them to lead their organization instead. Noticing that Yuuki isn't bowing at all, she grabs his neck and forces him to lower his head. Meanwhile, the two are left with a blank expression, stunned at the proposition. The two bow, asking them to take their group under their wing. Sato refuses instantly, but the stubborn lady declares that she'll kneel and kiss his feet until he accepts them. The customers around the store hear this and begin to chatter. Noticing the brewing gossip, he takes charge and tells them to enter the house so they can have a proper conversation. For some reason, the gang that was harassing them suddenly wants to join hands. They were about to pass through, but the woman cries out in pain as she bumps right into the house's warding barrier. Seeing her trapped, the two are alerted to her identity and demand that she explain herself. She finally introduces herself as Ariona Rubalt, the director of a national trade association in Japan. Studying the magic wavelength coming out of her, Sato identifies her as a dwarf. He's partly correct, as she's only a half-dwarf. Maya points at her rudely, asserting that her claims are too unrealistic, an ironic accusation from a fox spirit who's hiding a sword in her shorts. Moving back, he shares that he didn't expect dwarves to exist in this world. It's quite rare in Japan, but in her country, many dwarves are skilled in iron-making magic. Given the power of creation magic, they aren't limited to iron materials. In fact, her country is an active trader of rare metals. He thinks about it for a second, and asks why she would risk coming all the way to Japan. Unfortunately, half-bloods like her are treated as outcasts, particularly by the pure-blooded dwarves. Her first business venture was a hot spring, free of unfair and low prices. It was an honest establishment, but things didn't work out. Then Kashidzu showed up and told them to force Kana out of her store, along with some other shop owners. One of the men they met had something to do with the Shimogami school. Unfortunately for them, Kashidzu's backers suddenly disappeared, and their group was targeted in retaliation by the Shimogami henchmen. With this, Ryuki asks for help, but with a notably conceited expression. Ariona scolds his tone as usual. Hearing nothing odd or interesting in their story, Sato wonders if they're hiding an ulterior motive. It seems like his little brother has gotten himself into a complicated situation again. Simply put, they were practically used and thrown away. If Kashidzu called him out explicitly, then he couldn't really refuse. He looks at Ariona, who's hopelessly asking his younger brother to show some courtesy. His younger brother, whom he can't seem to leave hanging. With no choice, he volunteers to defend them in case the Shimogami followers attack them. This earns a mixed reaction from everyone, especially from Maya, who reminds him that the group bullied their store. However, Sato makes it clear that he is not doing it for free. He hands Ariona an ore and tells her to sell it for him. The woman is shocked to see the rare rhodium ore. Sato asks if she is up for it, and she replies that the ores are worth more in the other world. The sage is surprised that they know his secret. He shares that it is used as a weapon in his world and not much as an accessory, so he is thinking of selling them so he can have funds for settling down. Realizing that he is giving her a role, Ariona promises to sell the oars for a high price, which delights Sato. The two seal the deal and swear by their pledges. The woman immediately leaves to make a deal, but Ryuki stays for a while. He hands Sato a business card containing Ariona's address. The sage complains that it's too much, but Ryuki insists that he protects his boss. His little brother then leaves, and he wonders if he likes his dwarf boss, but decides not to interfere anymore. Later, Sato contemplates the profit of his oars and resolves to enjoy them a little bit. He offers to buy Haruka a bento box, but human food is not suitable for her. She urges Sato to just buy something for himself, and she gets amused when he takes an ice cream cone. He comments that it has been so long since he has tasted ice cream, so he will splurge on it. Haruka reminds him of his standing as a great sage, so he better act as a man of superiority. However, this makes Sato tear up. Suddenly, he receives a call from Ariona, saying she got an estimate of $5 billion for his oars. This left Sato speechless as she further informed him that she would soon bring him cash. The great sage is elated, declaring that he is superior and will buy all of the ice cream and bring it home. Haruka just looks at his master in disbelief. Later, Sato comes home and sees Kana busy putting away her winter clothes. He then offers her an ice cream to take a break and tells her he has questions. Kana is thrilled about the ice cream, commenting that it brings back good memories. She reminisces that the same ice cream used to be sold in her school during sports festivals. She yearns to buy it with her friends, but she is always the odd one out, until one day, there was a boy who noticed her and pulled her along. This shocked Sato, as it was their old memory. Kana licks her ice cream and comments that it was the same ice cream she ate with her dear friend. Looking at her, the sage smiles, saying he is glad that he likes it. Kana offers that he can still stay even if he gets a job. She adds that this is the first time she sees him buying something, so she taught him he might have found a job. The man realizes that he had nothing when he met her friend, and she gave him clothes and food, so his only fare is share bills now. She comments that the shopping district has been peaceful, and Maya has also lightened up more than before. Reminiscing lightly, she thinks about how boorish and aggressive her daughter acted. Thinking about it now, she was only trying to protect her mother. To risk her life like that, the 16-year-old girl must feel a lot of responsibility. So he's hoping to ease that burden even just a little bit. Going back, she credits all those changes to him being there, adding that it'd be nice if he stayed with them. Moreover, her instincts tell her that he changed Ryuki somehow as well. He doubts the claim, considering how his younger brother's unpleasant attitude and face have remained the same. Honestly speaking, their relationship in the past wasn't great. His crude behavior might be a form of resistance to those above him. So realizing that he's his older brother might even end up hurting him. He's here to save people, but there is a lot more to save than he expected. Troubled with how difficult things have become, he excuses himself, saying he'll put the rest of the food in the freezer. Nothing has happened for half a month since then. Even Chiyo hadn't responded when he asked about the negotiations with the Shimogami school. They could only spend their days daydreaming and joking around. A moment passes and Ariona appears in front of the store, carrying an unconscious man by the shoulders. She desperately calls out to him and lays Ryuki out on the wet pavement, looking gravely wounded. Quickly explaining, she says the Shimogami attacked his younger brother's office. He can't believe it. It should have been safe, as he warded the place written on the card he was given. Sato hurries to heal him, but Kana sees the tragic sight. Realizing Ryuki's state, she asks what's wrong. Ariona rushes him, but the sage is frozen. If he used magic in front of her, then her devil eyes might awaken. He remembers Maya's words, warning him that her eyes have the same power as the Demon King, and that they should never be woken up. Together, they'd promised to protect her with everything they had. The two women pressured him to act and explain. Ariona calls out to him urgently, telling him that Ryuki is his brother. However, Sato is still torn and frozen in place. Just then, the queen speaks with him, stating that she can heal his brother as long as the thread of life is still connected. However, there won't be next time. The queen then immediately heals Ryuki, which the sage is really grateful for. Witnessing the healing magic, Kana is confused about what is happening. She is also surprised to hear that Sato and Ryuki are brothers. She asks for an explanation, but Sato is determined to get back first at the people who hurt his little brother.